is just flawless, weekend after weekend, and maybe that's the big difference between him and Lando.
I think this was Oscar Piastri's most impressive weekend in Formula One to date.
He was more worried about Max than he was about Lando, actually.
No dramas for Oscar Piastri, who wins his 5th Grand Prix of the year. Piastri takes the Spanish Grand Prix.
I feel Lando needs to do something that might not be in the script for McLaren.
Oh, contact! Max Verstappen into the side of George Russell.
I was surprised, especially because it's not a very intelligent move in terms of the championship.
I think we're going to look back at this Grand Prix and think, oh, this is when things started to go really wrong for Red Bull.
What is going on right now? A brilliant drive from Hülkenberg.
Nico obviously had a point to prove after qualifying, and I think on lap 1 he proved it.
What a dramatic race that was. Welcome everyone to the Circuit de Catalunya for F1 Nation's review of a thrilling Spanish Grand Prix. I'm Tom Clarkson, and joining me in the paddock is Spanish journalist from Diario AS, Jesús Balseiro, and Brazilian journalist Julianne Cerasoli. Guys, very warm welcome to you both. I normally start this with just give us an overview of what caught your attention in that race. Julianne, let's start with you.
Max was the highlight of this race for me, for good and bad, because the way he managed to keep the pressure, even with a slower car, with degrading more the tires, the way they switched the strategy, he was making it work. McLaren were like, oh my God, this guy is closer than we think, because that's the picture of Max's season for the whole year, right? And then, boom, things turn around, and then we have the finish that we have.
He nearly made that 3-stop work. It would have been fascinating, actually, without the safety car late on, to see what he could have done. Could he have got Lando Norris? But Jesus, how about you? What's the headline for you?
Yeah, I think we got an eventful race here in Barcelona, which it wasn't a trend in the past. That's as a Spanish journalist, you feel proud when the Spanish Grand Prix is something we will remember during the season. A lot of things happened on the race. It was a very strategic race at the first 2/3 of the race. Then the safety car happened, the late safety car. Then the Max thing happened, which was great too. And for the Spanish fans, we also got the first 2 points of the season for Fernando. So it was really a great race, probably one of the most entertaining ones from these first 9 races of the season. We can be happy after that.
I agree with both of you. Max really took it to McLaren, and it was great to see. And Nico Hülkenberg P5, for goodness sake, from P15 on the grid. But look, we'll come to all that a little bit later. Can we just start at the front? Oscar Piastri bounces back after, okay, he was still on the podium in Monaco last weekend, but it was a troubled event for him. And bam, this weekend, he was on fire from the get-go, really.
It was very important for him, because in Brazil we have this saying that you cannot leave your opponent to like the game, which means, oh, they attack and then they get some ground, and then they start liking the game and controlling the game. You cannot allow this. And in the last 2 races, Lando had outscored him. It could start to go wrong with him. Lando could get more and more momentum, and he didn't let that happen. For the whole weekend, he was very consistent. He came back to the other Oscar that we had seen so far this season, and he did a great job. He controlled the race. I felt he was more worried about Max than he was about Lando, actually.
Interesting. What about the start, Jesus? I mean, Oscar got a brilliant getaway. The lights changed very quickly. The 5 lights weren't on for long. Lando said afterwards that caught him out a little bit. And of course, Max then takes Lando into turn 1. Was that the decisive moment?
I think it could have been, yes. At least it opened the strategy for Max in the medium term, in the undercut style of playing that Red Bull did this time. It was very aggressive on Max, but very clean as well. But it was very strong play from Oscar. It looks like Oscar is really on top of everything. Maybe not the last 2 races, but since he took the ground in Barcelona, he was the leader McLaren needed. He's a strong championship leader so far, and the championship now says so after this this race that he gets a bigger advantage he had.
I think this was Oscar Piastri's most impressive weekend in Formula One to date. I can't think of a better one. And what really stood out for me, okay, the pole lap was awesome. Of course it was. Biggest pole gap of the season so far. But it was his race pace. Because actually, if you break down the races so far between him and Lando has had better race pace than him. Even when Oscar's been ahead on the track because he's qualified better, the race pace has been better for Lando. But that wasn't the case here in Barcelona at one of the most abrasive tracks on the calendar. I feel Oscar is just learning the whole time, becoming even more complete with every weekend. The challenge for Lando is, okay, the gap is 10 points between the two of them at the top of the championship, but it feels like the challenge for Lando is even greater than that now because Oscar is becoming so rounded.
Yeah, the challenge is to find the weaknesses, because there were some weaknesses in the past, especially in the end of last year. I think the end of last year was very important for Oscar, because he was even surprised, because he was here in the McLaren. You're always getting better, and then at the end of last year it wasn't happening. So he had to dig deep in the winter break to understand what am I doing wrong, especially with race pace. And the fact that he has Lando as a teammate, and Lando is very good with race pace. I think it even makes he's learning a bit quicker because he has Lando by his side. Probably Lando should have been a little bit worse, and then you wouldn't help as much Oscar. But yeah, I agree with you. It's just hard at the moment to find weaknesses because even like wheel to wheel, he is good. Qualifying, he's good. He's always calm. He's always with the setup and everything. He finds solutions. So it's hard for Lando at the moment.
You can remember the same place 1 year ago. Lando was on pole and he missed the start. He lost the first corner and there was nothing he could do after that. He lost a race that could have been a McLaren race. By then we were thinking that the Red Bull was still a dominant car. Later, last year, we learned that it wasn't anymore. But Oscar Piastri doesn't give any room. He's just flawless on his weekend after weekend. And maybe that's the big difference between him and Lando. I don't want to say that Lando is making too many mistakes, but he used to make enough mistakes to leave the door open for Max to be fighting for wins again. And so far with Oscar, we're just finding a flawless driver.
I'm starting to think that this is now a two-horse race. Max, because of the eventful race he had and the 10-second penalty in coming home in P10, is now basically 2 race wins behind Oscar Piastri. And the McLaren is quick everywhere. I can't see a track where they're not going to be competitive. So for him to claw that back, bar a reliability issue, is going to be incredibly difficult. So if we are looking at an intra-team fight between the McLaren drivers, I feel Lando needs to start being less benign. He's got to do something that might not be in the script for McLaren. And I'm going to put it to you two. When Lando slowed down so that he could get a tow from Oscar for his first lap in Q3, that wasn't in the script. That really wasn't in the script. Andrea Stella, team principal, said after qualifying it was and I'm quoting him, minor episode. That was the public message, but I think internally that was, well, Oscar said it was cheeky over the radio, and I think it was very cheeky. What are your thoughts?
The way that Oscar called it immediately, it just shows that it's not just a minor episode, right? But yes, what Lando needs to do is just to up his game in qualifying. If he qualifies in first, what the engineers have been telling us here is that being with free air gives you 3/10. 3/10 against your teammate, you're going to win the race. So he needs to qualify better. I think that's it. And then he's not going to need to play any other games because he's going to be in front, and then his race pace will be better, tire management and everything.
Of course, Lando has to do more Monacos. In a season where 2 teammates are fighting for everything, even teams like McLaren, who usually display this sort of papaya rules, I don't think any team wants to see their 2 drivers fighting hard on track for the smallest margin for wins and championships. So the best way to avoid that is to qualify first, to win races, just like probably what Oscar is just doing in silent. It's up to Lando, and Lando has always been a very strong driver in one lap. Probably this season may be decided by the one lap pace eventually. So that's probably the reason to think that it will be an open season, is that Lando is not weak on one lap pace at all.
This episode of F1 Nation is sponsored by Trade Coffee. Your coffee routine shouldn't feel like a pit stop. It should feel like pole position with every sip. And if it doesn't, it might be time to ditch your go-to and try something new. And Trade Coffee should be the first place you look. Trade is the #1 coffee destination in the US, bringing fresh, expertly roasted coffee from over 50 of the country's best roasters straight to your door. Whether you're a coffee rookie or a total espresso expert, they've got over 450 incredible roasts, and they'll match you with the perfect one in under a minute. All you have to do is take their short quiz. And if the first bag isn't quite what you're after, they'll replace it for free until they get it just right. The courier who delivered my bag of Trade Coffee said, "I've been enjoying the smell coming from that parcel all morning," and she's not wrong. It smelled amazing before I'd even opened it. And it tasted just as good. It's an espresso roast from Alma Coffee, a small batch, farm-to-cup company in Georgia. It's chocolatey, it's nutty. That's pretty much it. And I've had to stop myself having extra cups. It's that good. So the Trade Coffee quiz really worked for me. Plus, with Trade's flexible subscription, you can pause or shift delivery while you're away. Ideal if you plan to be out of town for a while. And right now, Trade is exclusively offering our listeners 50% off your 1-month trial at drinktrade.com/nation. That's drinktrade, TRADE.com/nation for 50% off your 1-month trial. drinktrade.com/nation.
Max, can you let Russell through, please? Let Russell through.
What? I was ahead. Hey, but
My advice is to let him through.
wait, I was ahead. He just ran me off the road.
But that's the rules.
Oh, contact! Max Verstappen into the side of George Russell. We were hearing the advice not taken.
I cannot believe what I just seen.
So, what about that incident in the closing laps? Max Verstappen received a 10-second penalty and 3 penalty points after the stewards found him guilty of causing a collision with George Russell following the safety car restart. That demoted Max from P5 to P10. This is what both drivers said in the media pen after the race, starting with George.
My perspective was I just got crashed into. I don't really know why or what the thinking was behind it. In the end, glad that I continued with little damage, and ultimately it punished him a lot more than me. So, I mean, does it surprise you? With look, that's how Max goes racing. He was in P4, I was in P5. I ended up P4, he ended up P10. So, glad that I managed to finish the race. Not really sure what he was thinking, because he cost himself and his team a lot of points.
Max, it was looking pretty good until that safety car at the end, obviously coming back out on the hard tyres. Can you talk us through the restart, first of all, from your perspective, the contact with Charles, and then what happened with George after that?
Yeah, I had a big moment there in the last corner. Unfortunately, the hard tyres had a very low grip, so yeah, that was quite painful. But yeah, basically we just ran out of tyres. I mean, in hindsight, was it better to stay out? Maybe, I don't know. Because of those hard tyres, you get into those situations.
George has given his take on the incident. What's your take on that, and also the 10-second
I don't need to
penalty?
say anything about it, because it doesn't matter anyway, and we can't be critical about anything.
So Max didn't want to talk about the incident in the immediate aftermath, did he? But on Monday, he posted the following statement on social media. "We had an exciting strategy and a good race in Barcelona till the safety car came out. Our tyre choice to the end and some moves after the safety car restart fueled my frustration, leading to a move that was not right and shouldn't have happened. I always give everything out there for the team, and emotions can run high. You win some together, you lose some together. See you in Montreal." Now, we recorded this pod in the paddock after the race on Sunday, before Max posted that statement. But I asked Jesús and Julianne for their thoughts on the collision and the bigger picture of what that means for Max's championship hopes and Red Bull's season.
I was surprised, especially because it's not a very intelligent move in terms of the championship. it was very grey movement, the turn 1 incident where he had to give back the position to George. The 10-second penalty seems fair, but I prefer to think it's enough. 10 seconds, it's enough.
I agree with you on that, and I think it's because Max is so brilliant 99.999% of the time that all of us expect such an almost impossible level from him, and then occasionally he's just reminded us he's human. I think the biggest outcome of this, of course, is that he's really hurt his championship standings, right? He's given away a lot of points. It's, what is it now, 49 points behind Oscar Piastri in P1. He's not in the dominant car. It's hard to come back from this now. I wonder if at the end of the season we're going to look back at the Spanish Grand Prix as the moment when it slipped away from Max Verstappen.
Yeah, maybe the moment he gave up, in a way, his options. I was speaking to another driver who knows about fighting with a less competitive car, which is Fernando, moments ago, and he was saying a bit that maybe this is a relief for him now, because he doesn't have to fight anymore with worse arms for something that may be really impossible at some point against this sort of McLaren. But yeah, this may be a decisive race for sure for Max. It doesn't look very smart to lose a P5 on merit. That could have been a P3, of course, but it was still a good result. So I don't really understand why Max would be that mad when everything happened. Maybe also the situation with Red Bull, having only this one set of hard tires for the restart, having to give back the position where he wasn't really clear. I don't know. Maybe this is not a situation well played by Red Bull too.
But Jesus, isn't it a combination of everything you've just said? And I think you have to include in the thought process that all the teams came to Barcelona not knowing how the technical directive would play out. I think Red Bull were hoping it would slow McLaren down. Clearly it hasn't. So that's another source of frustration as well. I think the top of the mountain is looking further away than it's ever looked for Max this season, and that was before the start of the race. Combine the hard tyre and everything else that followed, I think he's just a frustrated racing driver, and I sympathise with that.
I think we're going to look back at this Grand Prix and think, oh, this is when things started to go really wrong for Red Bull, because this track has some fast corners. They were doing really well in fast corners before. So you get to Japan, Saudi, you can put there, and Imola, and they seem to be able to fight with McLaren in the fast corners. Here you have fast corners and medium speed. Okay, you can lose a little bit of medium speed, but I was really surprised by the gap in qualifying, 3/10, and the gap in the race as well. So you can put that in the Max Verstappen account of frustration, because everybody, I think, expected Red Bull to be closer, at least, to McLaren here. And if they're not closer here, where are they going to be close?
Now, what about Mercedes? Because they've had a rough couple of races. You know, Monaco qualifying didn't go well. Then they had the suspension issues in Imola the week before. Are they back on the straight and narrow now?
I was actually really surprised by their pace. If you spoke to Toto Wolff before the race, you'd be very downbeat, thinking, oh, we're going to kill the tires. It's going to be really bad, because their main problem this year is race pace and down to tires, and tires are so important in this race. And I was surprised to see them even close to Ferrari at the end of the race. I thought they were going to be eaten alive by Ferrari in this race. So maybe there will be some positives to take from Spain.
I wonder if there is a reliability concern at Mercedes, because of course Fernando retired from Monaco last week with a PU problem. I don't know if it's the same issue, but of course Kimi Antonelli retires from the Spanish Grand Prix with a PU problem. Maybe this is what could influence the World Championship at the front, because of course McLaren use a Mercedes PU. Is there a rogue issue going on in those PUs that could somehow stop the McLarens down the road and have a huge influence in the World Championship?
It could be related. From what I've heard, that what Fernando had in Monaco looks similar to what Kimi had this time in Barcelona. It's of course relevant that it's not affecting McLaren so far, but Also, Fernando was pointed out that he was missing some straight line speed during the weekend, not only on the race but also on the race. It's not all about the engine. Of course, there's a lot of too much drag on the Aston Martin car, but it's really a point to consider for this summer part of the season, where everywhere is hot, where the races looks longer, where temperatures are way higher, and maybe relevant for the championship fight as well. Not because McLaren is having any contender which is not a Mercedes engine, but because we know from the past that if one of the two drivers have reliability issues, talking about the McLaren drivers, they can open a big gap on the championship compared to race by race differences.
What about a really positive story now? Sauber.
Hulkenberg has a run on Lewis Hamilton. Sauber, that have only scored points once this year in the wheel tracks of a Ferrari, and he's going through to the inside. What is going on right now? A brilliant drive from Hulkenberg.
Nico Hulkenberg finishes P5 after starting 15th. It's Sauber's best result since Valtteri Bottas finished P5 in the 2022 race at Imola. It is Nico Hulkenberg's best result since 2019.
Today just everything clicked. Good start, mega first lap, made a bunch of positions, which was, the foundation for the race. And after, to be honest, just a good car, good rhythm, good balance and harmony. The updates really paying dividends, which was very enjoyable and obviously great to see. And then before the safety car was obviously a P8, and then obviously the safety car kind of mixed up the race. And I think in the end, being out in Q1 yesterday and having all new fresh tires, was the golden ticket in hindsight. So pretty ironic, but paid off today.
You passed a Ferrari at the end as well. This must be such a morale boost.
Yeah, Lewis, I think he was in used soft, and I had still all new because I was out so early yesterday, and it just shows you, what a difference it is, used to new. One lap, takes a lot of energy and life out of the tire, so it was obviously enjoyable, but, I think we're not there really fighting with the big boys, but I think we made a big step, in terms of fighting with the other midfield teams.
We are down at Sauber now, enjoying the celebrations, and Jonathan Wheatley is walking towards us. Jonathan, what a stunning race by Nico Hulkenberg today. First of all, what sort of shot in the arm does this give the team?
Well, today as a team, we performed at the highest level. I was so impressed with our communication, conversations backwards and forwards with the factory, the strategies that we delivered. The car had pace across both tyre types. Nico obviously had a point to prove after qualifying, and I think on lap 1 he'd proved it. But it's great to be motor racing again and to be genuinely competitive.
Are you surprised by this result? I mean, you brought new parts here. Did they deliver as much as you were hoping?
Well, I thought we had a pretty solid car in qualifying. Both drivers were capable of getting into Q2, and I think Nico just didn't do that. And to do that at this track, this is an aero track and always has been. I think it's hugely encouraging. And more than that, it delivered exactly what our tools said it would and in the areas that it said it would. So can't help but sit here tonight feeling like, we're on the right track.
You've been here 7 races now. We've seen the pit stop improve in the time that you've been here, but can you just give us an overview of the journey you've been on with the team so far to get to this point?
I think I've been here 8 weeks and done 7 races, so it's been a little bit like your feet haven't touched the ground. I've been trying to spend as much time as I can, almost turning myself inside out, just trying to listen to people, understand how we've got to where we've got to, the structures we've got, the people, the roles they're in, how they're divided, how the reporting structure works, and I think I've started to get a really good feel for what we can do and what we can do differently. We changed a few things in terms of how we communicate. A couple of races ago we tuned it again this race, and I'm really feeling like we're on the right direction. And like you say, look, pit stops for me, I've always said they're a manifestation of team spirit. So to do a 2.1 second pit stop today with this team, and it was rock solid, I was hugely impressed, and I'm very proud of everyone and their contribution.
Look, talk of being proud, you finished ahead of Lewis Hamilton's Ferrari today. What does that mean?
Well, it was very strange at one point to be looking at us chasing 2 Ferraris at one point in the race. Look, It's that wonderful feeling you get when you're genuinely competitive, and that's what we were today. And now we need to understand what the next step is for the car. You know, we haven't given up on 2025, and yeah, I'm getting excited about the rest of the season.
Tell us a little bit more about that. Barcelona has always been a great gauge of a car's all-round performance. Does that give you a lot of hope?
I think it's encouraging. It's encouraging that the tools line up with what we found on the track. We back-to-back the new package on Friday, so Gabby only really got on that package on Saturday morning. Immediately had the same comments as Nico, which was hugely encouraging. I think you can see by the consistency in the race that we've got a proper race car under ourselves now. So, look, Canada's a tough track. I've got my eyes fully focused on that. I know I should be enjoying this evening a little bit more, but I'm fully focused on that. But I think what works here tends to work at the majority of circuits.
Please tell me you're going to celebrate tonight.
Well, our flight got cancelled, so
because
it's gone
this,
technical. No, it went technical. So I now have no excuse not to spend quite a lot of in-cap money on getting people drunk.
Have a great time. Very deserved. Thank you very much.
Thanks very much indeed, Tom.
I sense from Jonathan there that the team is making great strides. They came here with a new package, and it's worked at one of the most demanding racetracks on the calendar. Gabriel Bortoleto didn't, as Jonathan just said, get to drive it first thing this weekend. Ju, I know you spend quite a lot of time chatting to Gabriel. First of all, what was he saying about the car?
Oh, he's loving the car now. He said that the car is so much better in traffic, which was a problem in the first few races. They have a lot more usable downforce. So what they went for is just to make the car more drivable. They're not trying to add a lot more downforce to it, but just try to make the car a little bit more comfortable for drivers, more predictable. And they managed to do that. Going back, when you think about Sauber, they went through a very, very difficult year last year. They were moving from Sauber management to Audi management. They don't have the name, but they have the management now. And then they had the last package in the end of 24 that worked really well. It was when Joe got the points, right? So that was the first step. Then the second step, this year's car, it wasn't as bad. They didn't start as that last as they were. Of course, they're coming from very, very low positions, but then they were a little bit better. They were in the mix for Q1, some Q2s. And then they have this package here that worked, and they will have another package probably before the summer break. So it's looking good for them. And
oh my goodness, Sauber for a podium if they keep going at this rate.
That's what Bortoleto said. He said, upgrades are really important. You see what happened to McLaren. I was like, oh my God, someone is really excited here.
And as Jonathan said in the interview, there is a correlation now. The car did everything all the machines and simulations back in Hinwil said it would. So that is positive. What about Hülkenberg, Jesus? I mean, his best result in Formula One since he was at Renault.
And being on the highlights, which is because normally you see good results from the midfield teams, and there is a lot of safety car related, a lot of rain, crashing, disqualification. But the thing we all have in mind now is Nico Hülkenberg overtaking Lewis Hamilton on a Ferrari, which is something you will remember forever if you are Nico Hülkenberg, if you are one of Nico Hülkenberg's fan. So it's really exciting to see one of those cars from the end of the grid doing good results, and it's a good lesson for any other team from the lower midfield, especially because Barcelona is used to, everybody believes that this is a reference track for the summer, for the European season, and if you are doing good here and they are doing really good, they can have a really good summer compared to what everyone was expected for Sauber at the pre-season test.
Yeah, and we talk about it being a transitional year for Sauber, and it is. It's all about, for the team, it's all about when Audi officially takes over in 26. But this is a point that Alonso made actually earlier in the weekend, in that Aston Martin is a team for whom it's all about 2026, but you have to build momentum. You can't just go in cold with a good car. You need to improve the processes at the track. You need to improve the processes at the factory. You need to give people confidence. And that's why this result is important for Sauber, I believe, is that it's a building process towards 26. And everything that Jonathan Wheatley is putting together with Mattia Binotto seems to be going in the right direction. So hugely encouraging for them. They've gone from P10 in the constructors to P8. I think this was a 10-point haul for Hülkenberg. And as Hülkenberg said to me last year, the whole Sauber move, the whole Audi move for him, and I'm quoting him now, he says it's Project Podium. Because, of course, Nico's never had a podium in Formula 1. The whole reason he's doing this is to get that first podium. And, well, they're heading in the right direction. This is an advertisement from BetterHelp. Let's pause for a moment to talk about men's mental health. Something that's too often overlooked, especially in high-pressure environments where the expectation is to always keep it together. Men today face a lot. To perform, to provide, to stay strong no matter what. But bottling things up, that can lead to burnout, depression and other unhealthy patterns. It's okay to struggle. Real strength comes from opening up and taking steps to look after your mental well-being, for yourself and for the people who rely on you. If you're feeling the weight of the world, talk to someone, a friend, a family member, or a professional. BetterHelp is the world's largest online therapy platform, with over 5,000 therapists available in the UK and more than 5 million people helped globally. You can connect with a therapist at the click of a button and even switch therapists at any time if you need to. It's designed to fit around your life, no matter how busy it gets. As the largest online therapy provider in the world, BetterHelp can provide access to mental health professionals with a diverse variety of expertise. Talk it out with BetterHelp. Our listeners get 10% off their first month at betterhelp.com/F1Nation. That's betterhelp.com/F1Nation.
When you look in the mirror, you see this old school cowboy.
From the director of Top Gun Maverick.
Why did Sonny Hayes come back to F1?
Starring Brad Pitt.
Ever seen a miracle?
Not yet. On June 27th.
How do you think I'd feel if you die on the track?
3 laps. 3 laps is a lifetime.
There's more to come from Barcelona in a moment, but I wanted to let you know about F1's other official podcasts that you can check out this week. Valtteri Bottas is my guest on F1 Beyond the Grid. He's eager to get back to racing in Formula 1 and discusses all the options he has for 2026, including the new Cadillac team. That's available from Wednesday, and you can watch our chat on the official F1 YouTube channel. And 3-time world champion Sir Jackie Stewart is on F1 Explains. That's out on Friday. Just search for F1 Beyond the Grid and F1 Explains on your podcast app. Let's talk about Ferrari then. They've now got a podium in Monaco, the slowest track on the calendar. They've now got a podium here, Barcelona. You talk about it being a reference track, Jesus. A fast track. I feel they're starting to get a handle on this SF25 and that there is a reason to be positive about Ferrari going forward. Do you agree, or do you think actually this podium was all about a bit of luck? Where are you at on the Ferrari performance?
On one side of the garage is true. It looks like Charles is on top of the things and comfortable one lap normally, and having very strong race even from the back of the top cars. But when you hear Luis on the pen, it doesn't look that he has any confidence on the car eventually when the balance gets wrong. So it's a team that still has to find their way to fight again for podiums on merit. This time probably Max was on the podium on merit, and after the restart it was a George thing, and suddenly Charles found it. It's smart for him. But I'm not really keen on Ferrari fighting against McLaren in the medium term of this season.
Do you think anyone can fight McLaren? I feel not.
I feel Max still can do it on merit in most of the tracks where the Red Bull is strong enough. I have some doubts about the Ferrari.
How important were those 2 sets of new medium tyres for Charles today?
Yeah, we have to say that because very often we say, oh, Charles Leclerc, he doesn't know how to choose the strategy, he doesn't have a say at Ferrari, he just accepts anything that he's told to do. And he said that was his call. all the way. The call to have 2 sets, the call to do qualifying when he did, and then he said, oh, maybe that was a mistake, it was a bit too early, and that he started 7th. But at least he took over strategy, and it worked. And even I was curious to see in the end how close he could get to Max. In the middle of the race, it looked like he could get really close to Max even without a safety car. Then Max started to get a bit faster than him. But it was a good afternoon for him. But Ferrari, they were the ones who thought the TD was going to help them, right? And it didn't help them at all. So they will have to go back to the whole suspension thing, the rear suspension that they are redesigning. It's a complicated thing to change halfway through the season. They have no other option. They're going to do it. And I think that's going to be the last resort for Ferrari in the season, once they have that rear suspension working. If that is the answer, then great. If that's not the answer, then it's going to be miserable for the rest of the year.
Well, they've had to run that car very low, haven't they, to get performance out of it, which is why they ended up, I suppose you could argue, running too low in China earlier in the year, and they were, rubbing the plank out, and so they were disqualified from that race. But why do you think Hamilton is struggling to get a tune out of that car? Because I get that it's only race 9 and he's new to the team, but we're talking about one of the greatest drivers in the history of Formula One. And I think in his own mind, he would have thought, I would have got my head round it by now.
It's tricky. I think he doesn't know the answer. And what he's been telling us is that he has been changing his driving style to a way that is very uncomfortable for him. So maybe he cannot keep it consistently throughout the whole race. It's a puzzle, Hamilton. I think it's a puzzle for himself as well. Sometimes he says, when was it? 2 weeks ago in Imola, he was saying, this is the best I've ever felt. I felt in tune with the car. And then the car just seems to slip away from him. This race, he was complaining about the rear for the whole race, and then that was it.
And you could actually see from some of the in-car footage of him following him, the car was moving an awful lot, wasn't it? Tell me how he ended up behind Nico Hülkenberg, because I missed that. I missed that. How did the Hulk get ahead of him?
It's probably the exit of the last corner, right? And that he was a little bit out of shape, and then Nico could pull it out.
Yes, and I think we shouldn't underestimate the fact that these changing teams. It's race 9. We saw small drops of his talent in places like China, where he won the sprint. That will happen again. But maybe the team around him, he needs to strengthen that thing, maybe bring in some new people, maybe bring in some old people, you never know. But Ferrari is also a very particular environment as a team, and maybe that's taking longer because of that, because Ferrari is special. Ferrari is above any driver, even above Lewis Hamilton, and they will need time to get used to the new driver they have on their hands.
And they're now P2 in the Constructors' Championship as well. They've bounced ahead of both Red Bull and Mercedes in one race.
Yes, but I don't think they are very proud of being 200 points away of McLaren.
197.
when they were fighting for the Constructors' Championship till the last lap of last season in Abu Dhabi.
It is one of the incredible stories this year. In fact, there are two in my mind. One is how Oscar Piastri has turned around his qualifying deficit to Lando Norris in the space of one winter, and, as you say, how McLaren have extended their advantage over the field at the end of a regulation.
Yeah, we usually say that end of regulation is the right moment to think of the next set of regulations, but I like when teams don't do that. I think of 2021 when Red Bull and Mercedes, till the last race, they were fighting for every small margin because they had to. Because it's very easy now for most of the teams to say, no, we're focusing on 2026. You can't just focus on 2026 because we are in 2025. There's still 15 races to go. You have to do well. You have to perform. You have to extract everything from your car. And if you don't, there won't be any shortcut on the first race of 2026. Probably the opposite. If you don't do the best you can on 2025, even if you're Mercedes, Ferrari, Aston Martin, there won't be any magic bullet in 2026.
Well, look, that's a lovely segue into talking about Fernando Alonso getting his first. It's crazy to think we're at race 9, his first points of the season with that P9 finish. I've loved everything about him this weekend. I felt in the press conference on Thursday, he spoke a lot of sense and spoke with a lot of gravitas about many different topics. Whether Aston Martin needs to focus on this car as well as next year, what impact Adrian Newey had on the team when he was at Monaco last weekend. All of that Alonso was brilliant on. And then he carried on the racetrack as well. I felt it was the feisty, brilliant Fernando that we know and love.
Yes, and it's the best example of why you shouldn't give up 2025, 24 races in 2025, just because something may happen next year. Fernando, he needed a safety car, a late safety car, to really get back on the fight. You could see after his lap in Q3, the clock was still going on. Some cars had to be back on track, but he was already celebrating with the fans. His arm was on high. He was clapping to the fans on the grandstands. He was really emotional this weekend. I guess in a way he knows that there won't be that many Spanish Grand Prix for him. It's not that he's retiring next week or so, but this may happen soon, in a few years' time. This Fernando we see now, he really wants to enjoy that kind of moments, and he really wants to be on the top of his game for a P9, for Q3. He's really enjoying everything around Formula One, and that's something we should celebrate as well, because he's one of the best drivers ever, and he wants to show it every weekend.
Aston Martin brought an upgrade to Imola a couple of races ago, and it appears to be working. How much more can they achieve with this car?
Yeah, it's the same case with Sauber. So the two of them, they were fighting for Q1, and these two teams, Aston and Sauber, now are Q2 teams. And when Fernando can smell blood, like we've seen like 2 years ago when they had a good start, you can see that he gains, a couple of tenths, just because he knows he can do well. And it doesn't matter for him if doing well is being able to win or podium or points. If he smells a result that is going to give him a boost, he just goes for it, and that's what I felt in this weekend. And it's important for Aston because that was the first upgrade that was validated in the new wind tunnel. So that was really encouraging for them. The wind tunnel they started to use around the Australia weekend. So it's a good first sign for them into 26. They're still thinking about 26, but it's important for them to use the information from this wind tunnel and validate it well. And then in 26, they can have this big step that they are looking into.
And Adrian Newey will be crucial. I thought there was a great line from Fernando on Thursday when talking about the impact of Newey in Monaco. He said he came into the debriefs and you sensed all of the engineers had to raise their game. They couldn't bullshit because they knew Adrian would see straight through it. And he just said as a result, it was so productive. I don't think he was implying that there's an awful lot of nonsense spoken before, but just the impact of one man. I feel Newey has that kind of impact on Aston in the way that Fernando did when he joined the team a couple of years ago, the impact that all of those top drivers, Max Verstappen on Red Bull, I feel he energises that team. He's such a crucial cog in the wheel there. But we can't discuss Aston without mentioning Lance Stroll, who didn't race today. A recurrence of his wrist injury from a couple of years ago. Do you remember just before pre-season testing he had a bike accident? And according to the team, it's been playing up for the last 6 weeks or so. With your nationalistic flag, you must have been wishing that Lance had pulled out during practice, not after qualifying, because then Felipe Drugovich, the third driver, would have got a race.
Yeah, he's been waiting for this for a long, long time now. He was here, prepared to take over. And he has been so close to racing because when he had the accident, he did the pre-season testing and he was confident that maybe he would do 2 races, because at the beginning the doctors were telling Lance that he would have to miss a few races, which didn't happen. He came back really quickly. We have to remember that, and maybe it's a consequence of that, what's happening now. But let's see what happens, because the team was telling us that he will go through a procedure this week and then see how it goes. Last time, it took him 12 days to go back to a car, which was really impressive. So we might see him in Canada. If we don't see him in Canada, what I know is that it's on Drugovic's contract that he has to be the one to take over his place.
And Drugovic is meant to be racing at Le Mans that same weekend as the Canadian Grand Prix. Give us an exclusive. He would prioritise the Canadian Grand Prix over Le Mans?
Yes, he would, but he needs an answer quickly. Like, he needs until the end of this week now, so he can talk to Cadillac to arrange how things would work out. For him, it's very clear. He wants to be a Formula One driver. And although he loves the challenge of Le Mans and he loved the opportunity of racing there, he thinks, okay, I can race there when I'm 30, when I'm 40, but Formula One, if I want to get racing in Formula One, I just need to take any opportunity.
It's a great point, because the build-up to Le Mans starts a week out, doesn't it? They have the fanfare in the town. I went to Le Mans in 2015, and you think it's a 24-hour race? Yes, it is, but you've got night qualifying, night practice, all the drivers being presented in the town. It's a week-long event, and so he does need to know, you're absolutely right, this coming week, doesn't he? So watch that space. Two more drivers quickly I wanted to ask you both about. Isaac Hadjar and Pierre Gasly, actually, both PSG fans, Paris Saint-Germain fans, who, of course, won the Champions League on Saturday night, so they were on a bit of a high coming into this race. But Hadjar, first of all, P7 in the points again. I feel he's having an extraordinary debut season.
Yeah, and he's proving to be very strong. And at this part of the grid where incidents happen, he looks also a very smart driver to avoid them. And I also have to think of Yuki Tsunoda. He could be having a very strong season in Racing Bulls if he stayed there.
Do you think Red Bull will give Yuki the whole season? The only reason I asked that question is the last time a Red Bull driver qualified last, Liam Lawson in China, he got moved on after that race. Is Yuki in any danger? They said at the time when they promoted Yuki, he'll have the season.
The precedents aren't good in Red Bull. Of course, they're in trouble when the second team is proving that the drivers are faster than when they get to the first team. We will never know what would happen if Max drives the Racing Bull and proves something different. But the only thing I could say right now is that Checo Perez is having a relaxed holiday, proving that he wasn't the problem.
Ready to come back.
That's a really good point. And of course, he's being linked to Alpine. He's being linked to the new Cadillac team in 26 as well. Funnily enough, I did see a photograph. Checo was doing some PR event in Mexico last week. He did look really happy. Yes. Can I ask you about Pierre Gasly now? Of course, Gasly started the race 8th with Hadjar 9th, and then they swapped with Hadjar finishing 7th and Gasly 8th at the end. Nice to see Alpine back in the points after what's been a pretty torrid time for them in recent weeks with the loss of a team principal, and you know, they had a horrid time in Monaco last weekend, both cars out early in qualifying. Do you believe in that car now?
I think what we've seen today was more down to strategy, because Gasly didn't stop in the last safety car, so he was on very worn tires, and I think nobody was able to get, only Fernando got through Bortoleto and got through Lawson as well, so he didn't have enough laps to get to Gasly. But qualifying was really good. And let's remember that Alpine had the most flexible wing in that zone of the grid, and still it wasn't a problem for them. So it's encouraging for them, at least for one side of the garage, isn't it?
Now, what about Carlos Sainz? In the points in every Spanish Grand Prix he's ever done, he must have been a bit downbeat after the race.
He was, especially because the Williams looked very good during the previous 8 events, and Carlos was very happy with that. He was happy he had chosen right last summer, but he couldn't prove it here in Spain. He was already aware of the fact that this car is not as strong in the medium high-speed corner content that we have in Barcelona. He's happier going to Montreal, where the slow section and the straights may bring something way better from the Williams. But yeah, of course, he was very sad with the fact that his grandson, he has a grandson on his name here in Barcelona.
Which corner is it?
It's after turn 10, so the stadium area, the first part of the stadium area. He went there on the driver's parade to talk to them, to send some hats and T-shirts. He's very happy with that. He does it for a few years now. But of course, this time, after being on the points every race in Spain, he's never been on the podium. That's something he should work on. But this time he missed the points.
Guys, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you both back on the pod. Thank you so much for your time. We're going to end it the traditional way with our driver of the day. Max got it on the TV. What do you think? Who's going to go first?
I would vote for Max as well, for good and bad. Driver of the day. We are talking about him for hours after the race. All the headlines are about him. He drove really well. He did something that he should have done. Driver of the day.
He did put that car, and I'm not talking with George Russell, but he put that car into a position in that race where it didn't deserve to be, right? Challenging the McLarens for the win. I get where you're coming from. Jesus, what about you?
When you see the standings, you have to go for Nico. When
Hülkenberg.
When you overtake a Ferrari with a Sauber and you finish 5th, it's something that may never happen again. At least this season, we don't know about 2026. So for me, the driver of the day was Hülkenberg.
I think we're in danger of doing something we're a little bit guilty of on the pod. When Max was winning everything, we didn't make Max driver of the day enough when he was doing amazing things in that Red Bull, because we started looking for other stories. And are we guilty of doing that with Piastri now? I thought this was his best weekend in Formula One. Biggest pole margin, bounce back from a difficult Monaco. I think he's my driver of the day. Interesting, 3 different drivers.
Which means a great race.
And exactly, that is what it was. Guys, thank you so much. Brilliant to have you on the show.
Thank you, Tom.
Thank you.
For more reaction and analysis from Spain, go to f1.com or the official F1 app. And you can watch the race highlights on the official F1 YouTube channel. And don't forget that F1 the Movie starring Brad Pitt comes out this month. Go to f1themovie.com to get your tickets for that. Thanks very much for listening. We'll be back next Monday with our preview of the Canadian Grand Prix in Montreal. F1 Nation is produced by Formula One and Audio Boom Studios.